while JD was hurt, he was studying like Miggy's swing, he was studying Ryan Braun's swing, and Castro mentioned that I had worked with Braun starting in high school right up to actually his rookie of the year. We worked together. And so all of a sudden this intrigued JD, so he got my number and he called me, and it was about October sometime. It was right at the end of the season. And so what he specifically, he said, I'm on the way out, I need to make some changes. I'm all in. Whatever you guys want to do with me, I'm ready to go. I'll do it. So he came in, and my philosophy, let me give you the general philosophy first. That general philosophy is that most people are looking for one thing, one big thing that's going to enlighten them, that's going to get there. And I think our whole society, whether you're talking baseball or otherwise, that's the way they think. And like I tried to tell, as I tell everybody, that one thing is made up of another one. The whole number one's made up of an infinite number of fractions, and each one of these fractions, by themselves, contain a universe of knowledge. And as you explore each of these fractions, you're growing toward one, and you realize the enormous scope of just one whole number. So it's going through all these little pieces, and toward the end, all of a sudden, you don't even care if you get to the end, because you're having so much enjoyment exploring all these little fractions. And that's how we're going to work. And from a coach's standpoint, most coaches say, I'm the expert of this or that, and you're here, and I'll bring you up to me, and now you have it because I've taught you my one thing. And I don't believe in that. So I'm saying, yeah, I'm here, and you're here, and you start rising toward me, but I'm continuing to grow. So again, you're always approaching, and at some point you will reach me. At that point in time, the questions and your knowledge take you beyond me, but hopefully by then our relationship is such as that I'll continue to learn from you, and you start lifting me up. And it's kind of a unique way of looking at things, but that's the overall philosophy. As it relates to hitting in general, a few basic concepts that JD totally understands is that statistically, balls hit in the air have a greater chance of getting a hit than a ball on the ground. Roughly speaking, the outfield area is 9 times greater than the infield area. And counting the pitcher, you have 5 people in the small area and only 3 in the larger area. And sure, they have more time to run things down, but again, you have a better chance of getting it in that area, hit in the air rather than on the ground. So we want to elevate the ball. How much we elevate the ball will be dictated by the pitch, the movement of the pitch, the speed of that pitch. And therefore, the key is not going knob to ball and bring the head down on it, but the key is getting on plane early. I learned some statistics the other day. The blast motion is measuring that with hitters, and they found that the hitter that is in the zone the longest, gets in the earliest and stays on plane with the ball the longest, is Altuve. Okay, I mean, that makes sense. Little tiny guy, one of the best hitters in baseball, but he gets in plane early and he stays through longer. Well, that plane, depending on whether the pitcher's movement is horizontal or it's more of a vertical movement, that plane is going to have different angles. So I don't buy into this, the perfect angle is this, the perfect angle is that, because the plane will dictate it.
The perfect angle depends on the pitches.
Depends on the plane. That, with that in mind, the pitch you have to be the quickest on is the guy's fastball. And that's what you're doing in the on-deck circle. That's why you're looking at analytics. You're finding out what his best fastball is. It's 97, whatever. You want to get in plane to hit 97 as deeply as possible. And as the speed diminishes or the location changes, that is going to affect how far out in front you hit the ball. Therefore, the old thing about hit the fastball out in front and wait and take the breaking ball the other way, reverse it. Hit the fastball deep and hit the breaking ball more out in front. Also, that's true with the outside pitch. You go back to Ted Williams, you hit the inside pitch 10 inches out in front of where you hit the outside pitch, the extreme outside pitch. Well, I had, through the years, guys that I either threw to or worked with, like Paul Konerko, and I used to throw to Eric Davis when he was coming back from the answer. Those guys started telling me, I know this is baseball logic. I know this is what the baseball people teach. But I feel like when I'm hitting the best, I feel like I'm hitting the fastball deeper on the inside and more out in front on the outside. We've looked at film, and I would say from the inside part to the outside part is kind of here, you know. It's this kind of a line rather than that line, depending on right or left-handed hitter. So with those concepts in mind, then the specifics on how to get there will be, there's so many variables that it's hard to come up with a particular rule. Body type,
Right.
length of the guy's arms. Miguel Cabrera, one arm's longer than the other arm. Some people, they're, one leg's longer than the other. This is going to affect the balance, okay? So we have to explore, because a lot of times the player doesn't even know what the variables he has to live with. Vision is another one of them. I call it the jigsaw puzzle thing. We got a big jigsaw puzzle that we're trying to piece together. And suddenly we discovered that parts from another jigsaw puzzle, previous ideas, are mixed in with the picture we're trying to complete. So not only do we have to put those pieces together, we have to remove those pieces that are not part of the puzzle for that guy. And that makes, our job even more difficult. And that's why it's not an overnight fix. That's why it has to be in an off season. That's why there has to be multiple visits and working out pieces. And sometimes we don't know. We have to find out working through that. Another aspect that we really teach is people start talking about rotation, linear movement, rotational moves. Everything, in my opinion, has to come from the ground up. And the core is what moves or drives you into the ball, that transfers the weight from the backside into the front side. If you try to drive it more with the knee, you actually relax the glute muscles. And those are the primary movers of the core. So by keeping your feet solid on the ground, so now we have to start talking about posture, how to connect to the ground, how to trigger those rotational forces. Because you have to rotate. There's linear movement and there's rotational movement. There's both involved. And so when we go into that, we have to be able to drive from the ground up. So just teaching how to drive from the ground up, teaching posture. There's a book that a couple books that I've read that have nothing to do with baseball. One is the Book of Five Rings, which is all about the samurai sword and wielding the samurai sword. And another is called the Zen Archer, which is obviously about archery. And in the Book of Five Rings, it's about 100 pages long, and I would say 75 of those pages are all devoted to posture, getting into a good posture in which you can both throw a blow or wield the sword or block when the opponent's going after you, but it all deals with the posture. In the Zen Archer, the master is telling this guy, yeah, this looks good, move your hands here, just a little bit more. And he gets frustrated, and he says, every time you make an adjustment, you say, that looks good, but before you let me shoot the arrow, you want to make another adjustment. And he said, when do I get to loose the arrow? And he says, I failed you. You have to find another instructor. He says, what do you mean? He says, when everything is right, the arrow looses itself. You'll know when it's right. The arrow will loose itself. And that's back to feeling that posture. Mm-hmm. So that's basically what we deal with. We get those concepts down, and then we go into the individual problem, that trying to find what was first cause. Sometimes if you get the right adjustment first, it corrects some of the others that you thought you were going to have to correct. And sometimes what you thought was first cause wasn't, so you got to readjust. And that's why the student has to have an open mind. And to have an open mind, we established a rule that I don't care what you've heard in the past, it's okay to argue with me. It's okay to ask me questions. In fact, the more questions you can ask me, the better. The more times that you have to interrupt and say, I didn't understand that, the better, because the more feedback I get from you helps me determine how we're going to put you together in a way that's efficient to you.